Hello YouTubers, I want to welcome you to another edition of Bargain Bin Gear. We're at part 4 of our pedalboard build. Okay, and part 1 we covered the MIDI foot controller, right? And it's a Source Audio Soulman MIDI controller. Part 2 was the MIDI Solutions Quadra Through. Part 3 was the Pigtone Power Supply. Now, here's part 4, and it seems so simple, right? It's almost embarrassing to do a video on it. But remember that the Source Audio MIDI controller here, right, has 4 preset switches, okay, and there are several banks of these, right, and at the moment to access banks, well, it uses up 2 of the foot switches, and that only leaves you 2 little presets. Well, that's no good, right? Each bank should have 4 presets. There's 4 switches, right? So the way around that is to add a little foot switch, right, externally, and it would fit right at the side, and basically it would be bank up or bank down. Okay? Now there's a little problem with that. All of my foot switches that I have are 1/4 inch, right? Jacks right here, or plugs, I'm sorry, right? So that just doesn't work. And the reason is because for the MIDI pedal board here, right, it has a jack, right, but it's an 1/8 inch jack for an external pedal to basically increase or decrease banks, right, and that would free up these 2 buttons, right, that are right now being used to increase or decrease banks. So we definitely need that. And I could use one of those headphone adapters, but they're kind of big and long, you know what I mean? And it would take up a lot of space on the pedal board. So I went on Amazon, and there were a ton of them. I don't know, I just picked one, right? It was under $10. Blah blah. Okay, I'll try it, why not? It's just what I needed. And that is just an adapter to go from 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch. However, it's a cable instead of an adapter, or just the adapter. It's a cable, and the reason is because then when you plug it into the side of the MIDI controller, you can tuck that cable underneath the pedal board on its side, and it's only 1 foot long. Okay, so we're going to do an unboxing here. Recreation, granted, once again. And I got this from Amazon, and it's the TISINO, right? TISINO. It's the TISINO high quality digital cable adapter. Wow! Here it is. So we're going to have an unboxing here, recreation. Please don't try this at home. Only trained professionals should attempt. Here we go. Okay. So it's really not an unboxing because it's actually just a little package here. But here we go. It's in its protective sheath. Ugh. Okay, and here it is, right? About 1 foot long in total. It's actually quite small, to be quite frank. And here we go. We've got the 1/4 inch adapter here, right? But instead of having all this sticking out on the side of the little MIDI controller, right? Instead we just have this, the little 1/8 inch, right? And it seems to be pretty high quality because we've got the cable here, right? So let's try it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is basically plug it in, right? Here we go. I don't know why they didn't make it 1/4 inch, except maybe just size. So here we go. I've got it plugged in here into the side of the Soulman MIDI controller, right? Okay, now the next step is to find a suitable foot switch, right? With a 2-button foot switch to decrease banks and increase banks, right? And each bank gives you 4 different presets right here that are accessible with these 4 buttons, right? So each bank gives you 4 different sounds. Go up a bank, you get 4 different sounds again, and so on and so on. Alright, now I've got a couple choices, right? And we'll have to make this decision and see which works best. The first one is a little tiny, look at this thing, it's microscopic. It's one of these little micro 2-button foot switches, right? But it's got a big old cable, 1/4 inch cable. It's a stereo cable, right? Just because it has the 2 black lines. But basically, you know, same thing, up or down. You've got 2 switches here. Now, I guess the first step is let's see if it works. So here we go. I'm gonna. Okay. So I'm going to take our little adapter jack and plug in the little pedal. Right? Boy, that's a solid connection. Now, here's the deal. Now that we have it connected, is all of this excess right here, all this extra cabling and things can be tucked under the board, right? So it's not in your way or anything like that. And that in itself is worthwhile. Alright, now let's see if it works. Now we've got, maybe he's kind of sleeping, so it's kind of in the way. But here's the thing to look at. Do you see here where it says panel 00? You've got 4 presets. If I click the up button, it switches to panel 1. And you get 4 more presets. Panel 2, 4 more preset sounds. Panel 3, 4 more preset sounds. So that's going up. If I click it the other way, right, it goes down. Down to panel 2, which is 4 preset sounds. And panel 1, panel 0. And then from there to 63 and on and on. So this works great. Okay. So success there. Alright, now this little dude right here, this little foot switch, right? I mean, it's so small that when you step on it, it kind of moves all over the place. Right? So you really got to use some, what was that, 3M quick lock type stuff instead of the Velcro, because it's just going to move around, you know, because it's so tiny. But this would work. Now, there's a couple things I don't like about it, for me personally, and that is I have pretty big feet. And this thing's tiny, right? You know, but beyond that, there's something else too. And normally this is considered a plus, and I'll never understand why, but it makes a solid click sound. You hear that? right? And it's fine, but when you're recording and through a very silent passage, right, it makes, what makes noises? You hear that click, right? And I've done recordings, you know, on albums, recording albums, tracks, and I'll be darned if it's during a silent passage or what have you, you hear these clicks, right? And I mean, I've tried noise reduction software, all kinds of stuff, to try to get rid of it, and basically you can't, not really. So it's best to maybe that this may not be the best solution. Now, as an alternative, and I've shown you this before, now this takes up a lot more real estate on the pedal board, right? And this is the Behringer, right? And this one actually comes from a Behringer bass amp. It's the FS112T, right? And it's kind of this goldish color, you know. There's some silver ones too. I think the older ones are silver. Anyway, same thing. You have a down button here and an up button. Well, so first thing, let's try it, see if it'll be a good alternative. Okay, I've unplugged the little one, the little foot switch, and here's the adapter. I'm going to plug in the Behringer, which is pretty big and pretty heavy duty. Same kind of thing though, you can tuck all this excess cable. Alright, so here's the Behringer, alright, and I'll tell you what, it's pretty substantial, it's pretty heavy, right? So let's try it first of all, right? So there's the panel, and we're on panel 63. If I click up, there we go, it goes to panel 0, 4 presets, panel 1, 2, 3, 4, and if I hit the other button it should decrease, right, the bank here from bank 4, which they call panel, but it's actually a bank, bank 3, bank 2, bank 1, bank 0. So it works great. And I don't know if you noticed, but take a look at this, right, on these foot switches. These, I call these the roll-in style because a lot of roll-in products have these foot switches. And basically, they don't click. Or if they do click, it's very soft, and you can barely hear it. Take a listen. Right? I'm actually decreasing the banks here, or increasing them. Right? Well, where's the click? There isn't any. So that's pretty cool for my purposes. That way when I'm recording something, you know, it will never pick up the clicks because there aren't any, which is great. So I don't have to mess with that. The other thing is, as I said, my feet are pretty big. And hitting these, because they're larger, right, is much simpler than the little tiny one. But in exchange, right, it takes up some space on your pedal board because it's pretty big and it's heavy. It's surprisingly heavy. So it's real substantial. On the other hand, another good thing is it doesn't move around. Right? I mean, when you set that up with just even some Velcro, it's not going to move around like that little one. That little one, I tried to mount it a couple times and I would hit it and it would like turn over on its side and stuff. It was just sad. So I like this much better for my purposes anyway. So there we go. That works great. And that little cable adapter is just the thing. Right? I much prefer that. And if you take a look at it, right, it's about the same size, oops, as a little power adapter here. And that's a right angle power adapter cable. Do you see that? Right there. That's the power cable. See how far out it sticks? And now take a look at the adapter. Just a tiny bit more, right? And you've got the cable. So that's just great. That'll work perfectly. So I much prefer that than a huge headphone adapter. You know, those old school ones that are about that huge, you know, and they stick out way too much. And the other thing, as I mentioned before, the little cabling and things, right, where you plug in the 1/4-inch cable and the adapter and things, all that gets tucked under the pedal board, right, so it's out of your way. Makes it real nice and clean. I'm going to go ahead and use the Behringer one. That's the one I prefer, just because it doesn't click. And it's bigger, so much easier to hit with my feet. And I'll tell you this much. I mean, I've recorded a lot of tracks and things, right? And have used this kind of setup before with the Behringer foot switch. And I mean, I stomp on that thing a lot to change sounds and things. By the way, if you hear the chirping, that's my screensaver. So there you go. What a deal. That little cable makes all the difference, because now it frees up 2 of those foot switches on the Source Audio Soulman MIDI controller. So now I can increase and decrease banks and have full access to 4 presets per bank, right? And just scrolling through different sounds and things, this works really well, you know, for my purposes. And I use it constantly. And the nice thing is, when it wears out, you can replace it. And I mean, these aren't very expensive at all, you know. I mean, yeah, I've seen them for like $20, even less than that sometimes. Just depends. And I mean, you know, I suppose eventually it would wear out, but I've never had one worn out. Okay, so there you go. We're one step closer to building this pedal board. Now we're still awaiting one of the power supplies, and that's going to power the larger pedals, right? Then we have to decide what pedals to put on the board, and what order, what combination. I have a pretty good idea, you know. But this is a little board. It's not all that big. Yeah, and it's kind of like my living room experimental board. So, I mean, I'll have plenty of power to try different pedals and things. And what's nice is it's not far from a computer, so I can edit those presets very easily, you know. And once I get the presets down, which are just basically, you know, combinations of different pedal sounds, right? And I'll have my favorite sounds set up there, you know. And there should be a warning here, by the way, that I've run into. And that is, once you program, right, the Soulman MIDI controller, and you get your favorite sounds and so on, right, it's very easy to then rely on those sounds and just never change them to different sounds, you know what I mean? And I think that's a big mistake that I've made, is that, you know, I should continually be experimenting and programming the pedals to get different sounds. And what I've discovered over time is that presets that I thought sounded pretty good, you know, as I worked with it more and created more presets, those old presets just didn't sound quite as good. So, you know, I mean, I can save them on the computer and get them off the actual Soulman MIDI controller pedal and put the new presets on. And I could still retrieve the old ones, but they just, because they, but I usually don't, because they don't sound as good. You know, now maybe it's just me, I don't know. Okay, the other thing is choosing which pedals to use. And I have a limited amount of space. We'll see about that. You know, I've been putting that off. And then there's one other step, and that is mounting everything to this pedal board. And it's not a pedal train pedal board, this one. It's actually a smaller one. Not quite a pedal train. But I might switch it to the pedal train, which is much larger. We'll see. We'll see. So those are videos coming up here. And then, of course, the final one, the most interesting one, right, is how does it sound? Right? And I'd like to know, too. You know? Alright, well, anyway, so this one, again, was the TISINO brand, made in China. And remember, it's the high quality digital cable adapter, right? And it's exactly what I wanted. You know, it doesn't take up too much space, right? It's almost like a right angle, not quite. Less than a half-inch difference, I mean. So it's really pretty nice. And that'll be fit just fine on the pedal board. Alright. So there you go. So see you next time. Alright.